I think I already said it's Hoggle. I've been a little bit, as you can tell, probably obsessed with Hoggle my whole life. I love his character. I love his performance. I love his character arc, his turnaround. I love how he looks. I love his color palette. I love his big gnomish face. Um, I've watched that film so many times, and there's a couple. What amazes me about Hoggle isn't just a cool, fun character in a little twee movie. For me, he represents everything I love about the creative process, from conceptual design to sculpting to performance. I mean, there's so many CG films out there now that are done so amazingly, but you watch those characters and like, man, that's a great effect. But you can still watch a 30-year-old movie in Labyrinth, and Hoggle's never an effect to me. He's a character. And there's some shots, like when he's rolling his eyes at the wise man, he couldn't look more real. It's amazing. I can't fault who Hoggle is to me, and I think I put the most work into capturing the character of Hoggle. I always regretted sculpting this guy with a smile because it didn't, I wanted to sculpt the "should you need us" sort of smile when I did that 10 years ago, but I always look at him and go, oh, I wish I'd done the grumpy. I got some down here. So the Labyrinth map. Where's this map? So first, the guys at River Horse sent me through this, and this is what I had to work at. And the absolute best kind of clients to work for, because very, very broad. It's like, this is our rough idea, can you incorporate that? And just go crazy. And I started very literally taking this as a bird's eye view of the map of the Labyrinth, and I wanted to make it look like it was real and fit everything in. And I must have spent 2 weeks working on a bird's eye view of the Labyrinth based on this. And it was the most stressful work I think I've ever done in my life, because I'd pitched so hard to be the guy to illustrate this board game, and it was just looking absolutely terrible. But it was a wonderful, I love failing in my art, because you learn the most that way. And I came to realize that, how do I say it right? It's not about taking the Labyrinth seriously, because obviously I take the Labyrinth very serious. It's such a cohesive, visual, well-designed world. It's not, and anything goes. Yes, things move, and there's goblins everywhere, but it just feels so real. And I always thought of it very realistically. But when you try to lock elements of the Labyrinth down to one set geographical site while incorporating this and keeping it all within the board, it was looking more like a Sim City thing, and it was losing the magic. You didn't, of what the Labyrinth is. Like being in a helicopter looking at the top of a forest rather than being inside that forest. I'd rather be inside the forest, And the guys at River Horse were very understanding, and because I said I just need to start again. And then something Alessio said in an email, I think he said, like, I was thinking of the board game illustration more like a tapestry, a medieval tapestry, where the perspective isn't so important, but you see key elements of that board. And they sent some great references of some other board games that pulled that off pretty well. And then it just clicked to me, and I thought, oh, that's much easier. So This is really rough, and it's kind of like, for me, this is shorthand. Like no one else could read your handwriting, but you know what you're looking at. So this is one of those. You're probably not gonna make head or tail of this, but this is a real quick little visual map of what I did to figure out that. And then from there, I went on to. I started just drawing up. I started drawing some key geographical elements of the Labyrinth, which are film moments based on my little doodle scribble down there. And really rough. You're not going to hang these on the wall, but just, but because the best character after Hoggle, of course, in the Labyrinth is the Labyrinth itself, and not one single piece of scenery in that movie is wasted. Every element is either a character or a feature or is a mood piece behind what's going on in the story. So once I did all of these things, I put them into a page on Photoshop and position them where I'd like to be, which are all these blank gaps here, and then I printed that out, and then I traced this over it, and I composited that in Photoshop, and then just obviously very rough. I printed that out to the exact size of the game board, which is this. And then with a big light table, over a couple of days, I did all of the, focused sort of, the detail pencil work as best I could. And to the size of the board, it was important that it was all the size of the actual playing board, so it really felt like you were looking at an illustration, because I read a lot of board game reviews and watched a lot of board game, YouTube channels, and a couple of people said a couple comments that stuck out to me about, like, what I liked best about this game was how illustrative the gaming board was, because when your friends are taking too long on their turn, you've got something great to look at, and that really stuck out to me. So this is the board with the bleeding edges that are just going to wrap around the thing. But I took that line work, and then over a couple of days to a week, I just started painting into that line work like a colouring in book, and just working up textures and a feel. And what I tried to do, just to keep it interesting for me personally, if you spend this long on an illustration, you want to do something, a bit above the pale and have fun with it, is that if you start here at Hoggle's Gate and move your eyes around the map in a spiral like this, in a perfect spiral, you actually follow the visual journey of Sarah's quest, and it also, everything is about bringing your eye, all of the walls, all the spirals, everything, while showing you every scenic element that happens in that movie. So at a glance, you can kind of watch the whole film in a glance. That was important to me. And another thing I did is when Riverhorse first posted pictures of Hoggle, I read the comments, it was nice, and someone made a comment, oh, I can't wait for this game, are you going to hide Bowie's face throughout it? And I thought, man, that's such a good idea. And so there's 9 different David Bowie faces in there, and then where is it? And then when I looked at it all, I thought, I've got I'm missing another opportunity just to put a little bit more life in it. I did, because I knew that these are going to be, like a centimetre big each. So I whipped up like some goblin sketches, and then I painted them into the different scenes. So there's 9 different goblins you can look for, and then here's just the sketches I did for the other elements that they've asked me to do. In the end, they wanted the staircase scene incorporated. And so I did a cutaway into what was the rock there. I had accidentally and luckily left myself enough space. And then there's character stuff that they wanted. Some dice. So I've got another Didymus here. So where's... Originally I based the character work. I did the character work based on what the finished sculpture looked like, and then I went back in, and then much more free to do something gestural, the kind of stuff you can't easily mould at this scale. I went and drew the epic Didymus pose, and it's much the same process as the map. I drew it really roughly, and then I use a light table to go over my line work and, have a bit more boldness in cleaning up, making sense of some of those lines. And same deal with Hoggle. That's the Hoggle I drew based on the miniature. And then that's the Hoggle I drew based on kind of the film, or kind of more visually stunning Hoggle, and that's the rough line work I did to go over that. And so that's my drawing and painting process. I guess it would be, I love all of it equally really, but I love Goblin City. I think, I think the designers did such a good job of making it feel like an extension to the Labyrinth, in the sense that you could get lost in it, but they obviously could make X amount of the set. And just the style of the buildings, because they're not really the really obvious route you could go down, which a lot of wargaming scenery does, is like Tudor beams and everything, which just limit it to a time period. But this, if you took those Muppets out of it, you could film a Conan movie there, or a movie in the Black Plague, or Willow, or anything. There's so it's an original, quirky, obviously very Brian Froud-esque driven set, but it's still it just ticks every box filmically. I love it. I'm not sure it's in regards to differences and challenges to what. I guess I've had more freedom from the companies involved to go about it my own way than I would on a massive production film, which I'm used to working on. The other goblins that are coming out soon, I got to pick which goblins to do and which poses they were in, and they were just approved. They liked them. Obviously, I chose wisely in the sense that I knew what they needed to do in the board game, and I chose the most classic ones and everything. But the biggest challenge because Alessio designed the board game dynamics itself, I had nothing to do with that, and I was just meeting the demands on me as the illustrator, which were only challenging in the sense of me trying to do the best job I could, and that's always fun for me. There was one other thing where I started working on the